Yo guys, my name's Jared, this is Wrestle Kicks, and we are reviewing AEW Grand Slam. Yo guys, my name's Jared, and I am brand new to this. I've decided to do a wrestling podcast for Dynamite and Rampage, because basically I've fallen in love with wrestling again, and I don't know, this is something that I'd always wanted to do, so I thought I might as well just go for it. I've been a wrestling fan since I can't even remember, probably since I was about 5, maybe 5, 6. Basically, my dad would pirate loads of wrestling shows on these tapes, and then we'd just have all the pay-per-views on these, videos. And basically, that's what I grew up on. I just watched loads of the 90s stuff and the Attitude Era stuff, and yeah, that's pretty much what got me hooked. I remember my favourite wrestler when I watched for the 90s was Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Owen Hart. Them three really stuck out to me, so I was just like, that's when I was really into it. Hulk Hogan, didn't really like it as a kid. I thought, I don't know, something about it just, even as a kid, I don't know, it just didn't hit me where it should have. But no, Michaels, Hart, Owen, those three were like the first three wrestlers where I was really like, oh, I really enjoy watching this. And then, yeah, basically I started watching Attitude Era stuff. As a kid, that was the best thing ever. I'm not going to lie. Shane McMahon was my favourite wrestler growing up, just because he did all the crazy stuff. And as a kid, I was like, what? And Jeff Hardy, obviously, was one of my favourites too. But, yeah, and obviously, as a kid, watching like all the Attitude Era stuff was just what got me hooked for life, I think. And then I never stopped. Me and my brother used to just watch wrestling religiously from that point. And I actually nearly fell out of love with wrestling when CM Punk left. So I was a massive CM Punk mark, like the biggest CM Punk fan. I'm sure everyone says they are, but I was such a big fan. And then he left on, the way he left, and obviously the way WWE treated him. And then I kind of lost my love for wrestling. And that's around about the time when I started watching New Japan, which gave me a whole new perspective of professional wrestling. It was, what they were doing in Japan is absolutely ridiculous. They're probably the best workers band in the world. So I was just hooked on that. The Bullet Club was massive, so I was a massive Bullet Club mark, of course. And then I don't know, it's just I was kind of in and out. I wouldn't watch New Japan like weekly or anything like that. I just watched like the big shows. And then NXT was formed, and that was when I started watching, again, not weekly, but the pay-per-views. So I was pay-per-view watching for so long. And then I completely stopped watching WWE at this point, because can you blame me? But and then AEW just came about, and AEW is literally what I've been wanting for the last 10 years of my life. AEW is, I'm sure I'm not the only one, it's just made me fall in love with wrestling all over again, and I know I'm not the only one, and it's made me want to do this podcast. And this is the first episode. We are reviewing AEW Grand Slam. Oh my gosh, what a show. Obviously, right off the top, we have Kenny Omega versus Daniel Bryan, and it was perfect to start the show, I felt, because you always run the risk of the rest of the show falling flat, but that New York crowd was not going to let that happen, honestly. They absolutely were up there with Chicago in regards to just how into every match they were, every little bit. Obviously, Big Show and QT Marshall doesn't count. But, literally, the whole aesthetic of the show, firstly, was absolutely amazing. So I like the fact that AEW don't go too over the top with their production, and it's just like a simple, they've got their tunnels, This time they did have the flashy ramp with the Titantron on the ramp, which I thought was pretty good. I thought that was alright, it was just something to make it seem like a premium production, because of obviously the Arthur Ashe Stadium show. firstly, the stadium's absolutely beautiful. What a stadium that is. And if AEW can make that their home on a yearly basis, like everyone is pretty much saying that they will, winning, because that stadium is absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, let's get into it. So it starts out with Kenny Omega versus Daniel Bryan, and literally these guys made their entrances to like massive pops, 20,000 massive pops. And that whole presentation of the entrances was amazing. And then the referee rang the bell, and that probably got the biggest pop of the night. When the match actually started, they didn't even touch each other for about a minute or 2 minutes. And then the crowd were just eating it up. Daniel Bryan never looked happier. He's never looked happier. He looks so right at home in AEW, and I know he has no bad feelings towards WWE, which is great, but you can tell he loves AEW already. So Kenny no-sold the crowd reaction, which was best. Kenny, it's big match Kenny, and that's what he does. He doesn't care. He just goes out there and has the best match he possibly can. And I'm sure they were both so excited to wrestle each other again, because the first time they wrestled, I don't know if you saw the Daniel Bryan, he did like an interview, right? Like a radio show, and he was saying like this is the biggest match of his career and all that kind of stuff, and he was saying the improvement that he saw Kenny Omega go through from the first time they wrestled to like obviously watching him now was incredible, and he's become like the best wrestler in the world, which is obviously true in my opinion. Kenny Omega is the best wrestler in the world. Daniel Bryan may now come in and take that title, but you know, I think they both absolutely loved the moment. They took it all in, and then they proceeded to give us one of the best TV matches I've ever seen. Literally, it was perfect professional wrestling. It was when I watch professional wrestling, that's what I want to see. It was a New Japan style match. So it was like, so the way they do it is they slow build. It was like hard hit. They were doing the chops and the kicks. They were doing loads of those spots, and then it was just hard hitting. It was slow, methodical. They were just wrestling each other, but it was perfect. It was so perfect, and the crowd, because they were wrestling, and when you do a slow build match, like, and it's like Kenny Omega and Daniel Bryan, the crowd are going to eat up every little bit of it. So you don't have to rush around doing all these, start the match on a high spot thing, because they could do what they want, and the crowd were going to love every second of it. So it was a slow start, hard hitting. They were chopping each other. Daniel Bryan's chest was like purple. It had like, you know, when it goes like weird and you can do like the vein, like it looks like veins, but I don't know. It looked ridiculous, and they were beating the shit out of each other, wrestling the shit out of each other. And it was a slow build. They started doing like some bigger moves later on in the match. It was so it was like a slow build, and then they got a little bit going, and then they started going in the last like 5 minutes, and in the last 5 minutes, that's when like the match's potential really started to show, and 100% they are building to a rematch, because you can't. Obviously, they did the 30-minute draw, but some of the spots in this match were absolutely ridiculous. But they definitely held back, because they are going to do a rematch 100%. If you think these two aren't going to do the rematch, then you're crazy. The things that they can do without Omega, you know, them against each other, without Omega versus Bryan anyway, with the roster they have, is absolutely crazy. But 100% they're having a rematch for the title. 100% they're having a rematch for a title. So let's go through some of the spots in the match. So at one point, the match broke out onto the outside, and Kenny Omega walked all the way up the ramp. And I was like, everyone knew that the biggest V-trigger was coming. So, and then he just, you know, he's working the crowd, and then he sprints down to the ring and hits, and they made this look amazing. He hits the biggest V-trigger, because they, obviously AEW have adopted this style where the ramp doesn't disconnect from it's like connected to the ring. So there's no there's no drop or anything like that. You just go straight from the ramp to the ring. And Kenny ran down the ramp, hits the biggest V trigger against the ropes. It looks absolutely brutal. They went to a commercial break after that, actually, because obviously Daniel Bryan, T's not making the count, but he does make the count, and Kenny works him on the outside for a little bit. Well, that was during the break, because I watch it on Fight TV. I get to watch it all, but people who were watching, I imagine, on Sky, or not Sky, but cable or whatever. That's what the you guys call it in the States, cable. Then you would have seen the advert. I don't know if you get like the little TV in the little corner, but I would suggest. Well, I wouldn't suggest watching it on Fight because ratings, but on Fight it is a lot nicer to see the commentary carry on and no break. So that was nice. Yeah, so there was exchanging nice moves, and then basically we get this on the outside. So it looks so good because the ramps, it's like WWE's ramp, so it's like a video ramp, Titantron ramp, and then basically we're fighting there, and then Kenny Omega reverses a move, gets Daniel Bryan into the Snapdragon, and delivers such a brutal Snapdragon. It was absolutely crazy. Like literally, Daniel Bryan, he landed on his shoulders and then slid down the ramp, and that is what I want to see from my pro wrestling. That is what I want to see. And he sold his back and his neck the whole match, because obviously Kenny wants to set up for that V-trigger, but that spot was absolutely ridiculous. And there was another Snapdragon from the top rope from Kenny Omega, where Daniel Bryan obviously is not going to be a maniac. He's not going to be one of those Japanese wrestlers where they land on their necks and they land on their shoulder and they just kill themselves from top rope spots. Absolutely scary. The Young Bucks, for example, in the cage match, ridiculous. So Daniel Bryan obviously flips all the way over. The momentum took him all the way over, covers him for a near fall, and then I stopped paying attention to the the timekeeper to say how long was left, and then it was just like last minute, and I was like, what? How much time's been? Because how is it in the last minute? Because this match flew by, honestly, and the crowd were eating everything up. It was such a New Japan style match. It's just a tease of what they can do. So we get into the last minute. Kenny Omega, they're fighting back and forth, they're chopping back and forth. It looks like Daniel Bryan's going to get Kenny Omega, but Kenny Omega gets back up. They start chopping the crap out of each other, and then the referee, the bell goes, the referee calls the match, it stopped. The booze was absolutely ridiculous. Because obviously the crowd want to see a winner, but they understood. They probably got annoyed because they had to stop wrestling. I don't think it was so much the draw, because I think the draw was amazing. That's the best. Well, not it's the best possible outcome that they could have done. No, neither man would eat a pinfall. Daniel Bryan definitely wasn't going to lose. Kenny Omega definitely wasn't going to lose in a non-title match again, because he already lost to Christian. Well, not in a non-title, but he already lost to Christian and he beat Christian. He can't lose again. So I think the draw was the best possible outcome. The crowd booed the crap out of it, but I think it's just because they wanted to see them carry on wrestling. And then they continue fighting like the bell never rang. The match continues to develop. The referee's trying to break them up. Daniel Bryan's pulling. He works Kenny Omega to the ground, and then pulls his hair back because he's basically Daniel Bryan sold his wrist and his back the whole fight, and he's working. He's pulling his hair, and then he finally gets him in the label lock, and that's at the point where the Bucks and everyone, the Super Click, they all come down to the ring and basically make it so the match doesn't continue, because the crowd were really against this again. They were booing the crap out of it, and then the Young Bucks took advantage of the heat, and they basically triple super kicked Daniel Bryan with Adam Cole into the corner, which pretty much put the lid on it, and that was the end of, the match wasn't going to restart or anything like that. Not that I didn't think it was going to anyway, but I guess it was for the crowd. And then the Young Bucks took all the heat. Adam Cole and the Super Click, All Elite, took the heat. I didn't mean for that to rhyme. And then, and then and then obviously Christian and then the Jurassic Express run down to the ring, and then they get the cheer, rinse the ring, and then the crowd are generally happy in the end, But honestly, that match was absolutely... Nothing I'm saying is going to do it justice. Obviously, the slow build into the big moves was a lot similar to New Japan and the way they work their matches. Hard hitting at the beginning. So it's believable in the latter stages when they are doing these moves. They've been through the chops, the kicks, the hard hits, the elbows, the forearms, the big moves on the outside. So it's believable that they look exhausted and they're selling every single move in the latter stages of the match because of the hard hitting beginning they had. It was beautiful. It was such a good match. And nothing could follow the match in regards to its quality, but no one expected that anyway. And the rest of the show flowed perfectly, I thought, because it didn't affect any other match. Obviously, you start off with the best match of the card. You expect it to kind of go downhill, but honestly, it was the opposite for that. So I know, obviously, I've been on Twitter. There's fucking idiots already saying like, "Oh, they ruined the ending with the draw. Oh, the blah blah blah." It's like the most trolliest minority douchebag group of people. Like, it's like minuscule amount of people who don't have profile pictures. They're all like bloody weird cars, and they'll have like a weird picture of a wrestler as their picture and stuff like that, and then they'll just comment like they'll be on their keyboards crying about the finish, or they'll be trying to like play down everyone's hype. Basically, that's what's happening, right? These people are annoyed that all the AEW fans are having the best time of their wrestling fandom lives. Like, as far as a wrestling fan goes, this is one of the best points in wrestling there's ever been, and the WWE wieners can't handle any of it, and they're just crying, and they're just on their keyboards with these fake profile pictures, and they're like, oh my god, they ruined the finish, ha ha ha, like trying to make everyone else feel bad about like the fact that they really enjoyed it or whatever. But it's just not work. No one cares. You're a bunch of losers. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and some people criticize AEW for being an indie show or whatever like that, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. AEW's clearly doing very well without those people anyway, so who cares? Who cares? I know I don't like WWE. I don't watch WWE or anything. It doesn't mean that I hate on them, or sometimes I'll laugh, but who doesn't laugh at WWE's booking and things like that? You know what I mean? It's not the best in the world. Obviously, Roman Reigns and all that kind of stuff's good. But who watches wrestling for one thing when there's WWE, when the Raw is a 3-hour show, SmackDown's a 2-hour show, 5 hours of wrestling for one dude? No, I haven't got time for that. I haven't got time for that. I mean, I watch, but I'll watch the highlights on YouTube because I haven't got time to sit there and watch 3 hours. I mean, of 3 hours of just one guy, obviously Roman Reigns, and don't get me wrong, his improvement's been amazing. Like, the improvement of Roman Reigns has been amazing. He is carrying that show, and his bits are really good. But I'm not watching a show for that. Like, again, I'm not watching a show for that one thing, whereas as AEW just offers you so much more, and I've got time for that. I do have time for that. The roster's amazing. The stories make sense. Not all the time, but most of the time they make sense. But yeah, no, trolls will be trolls anyway, so it is what it is. I actually like listening to people's criticism that makes sense and justified criticism. But when it's unjustified and you're just being a wiener, then move along. So after that, we then go straight into MJF versus Brian Pillman. This was, if you ever wanted to see a heel versus a babyface, this is the perfect heel versus babyface match. It was good. Obviously, not MJF's best match in the world or anything like that, but it was a very good match. MJF still continues to be the best heel in wrestling at his age. Brian Pillman was, obviously with his background and his dad and everything like that, it was really good to see him on that kind of level. He did really good job. I think he's come out of his shell a lot more as a character. I was watching Jim Cornette speak about Brian Pillman should have been angrier at the whole MJF situation because of what he said and all that kind of stuff. I really agree with that, and I don't agree with everything that Jim Cornette says, but I agree with that because literally you've got Brian Pillman, his history. Obviously you had the Dark Side of the Ring stuff come out, and that was absolutely an amazing documentary. But you have all of that kind of thing, and then MJF comes out and says all these things like, methany, and he's talking about abortions and things like that, and it's crazy, and he's insulting the crap out of this dude, and then he double legs him and just punches him. That's like your bog standard angry wrestler move, double leg, and then you mount them, and then you give him with the ground and pound, and that is your everyday wrestler I'm angry at you move. And I don't think that's what was warranted in this situation. It was a lot more. I feel like if you're gonna have MJF say that, there needs to be some kind of revenge. He doesn't have to. I didn't want him to win the match. Don't get me wrong, but I don't really feel like Brian Pillman. He looks fine after this because it's the biggest story he's ever had in his life. Do you know what I mean? So he looks fine. He looks good coming out of it. I'm saying he could have looked better coming out of it. And I don't know if that's what Jim Cornette was trying to say, but that's what I'm saying. I think he could have looked a lot better coming out of this. MJF looks amazing, as he always does. He's kind of erased that loss with Jericho, which doesn't really matter to me anyway, because he's like, 3-1 against Jericho, and when AEW are using that system of wins and stuff like that and the records, 3-1 against Jericho is absolutely. And when we look back, we're not going to be like, oh, MJF was buried, because he definitely wasn't buried. So yeah, 3-1 against Jericho is fine. That's kind of behind him now. He's beaten Brian Pillman. What's next for MJF? After this is the question that I would ask. I have no idea. I think it's gonna be Darby, based on the fact that he's got a rivalry with the Pinnacle at the moment. So it could be an MJF Darby situation, which I'm down for. I'm down for that. That is going to be absolutely incredible. Darby versus MJF. I don't know how I would book it. I don't know how I would book the story. I don't know. Obviously, Sting has to be involved, and you got the Tully thing. So I think that might be a factor into it, because that's what seems to be a factor in the Pinnacle versus a Darby at the moment. But I don't know if that's. I don't know how I would book MJF Darby if that is what they're going to do next. If not, then I have no idea. You could put MJF against anyone, and the other person will be better. That's how I put MJF in that level. He will make the person he's working with better. And that goes for everybody. I think everyone would look better in a feud with MJF. Just look at Pillman. He went from nobody, obviously Brian Pillman's son, but he went from a nobody really to now somebody who we know a lot more. Obviously the documentaries helped as well, and AEW used that, which was really, really clever, I thought, because what better time to pull the trigger on someone when they're hot, everyone's kind of aware of the background without having to really tell it too much on your own show. So I think, yeah, that's what I think of that match, basically. So after that, we go into Cody versus Malakai Black, and Malakai's back entrance is absolutely perfect. It gets slight tweaks every now and then, which I like, and I think the overall package now with Aleister Black is really, really good. Like it's I wouldn't say it was better than his NXT package, because I really liked his NXT look and his entrance. I think in NXT was better. Not that I don't like Aleister Black's entrance. It's such a good entrance that he's got now. I did prefer his NXT look and entrance though. Did I prefer it? I don't know. They're like here. They're completely different in my opinion, and they're like here and here. I guess Aleister Black is more of a he's like more of a normal pro wrestler. Like he wasn't coming out and doing crazy things. He was just a dark guy, you know. Whereas Malakai back is completely different kettle of fish. Malakai back is like he's a character. He's somebody. He's a character. He's got the mystique. He's like he reminds me of the Undertaker, not completely, but that's like the kind of mystique and Bray Wyatt and things like that. He falls under that category of someone who could be like that kind of person for AEW, like an Undertaker, which is absolutely great for him because he deserves that role. He deserves to be pushed beyond belief because he is one of the better pro wrestlers. So basically what I'm saying is he hits hard, you know, when he's in the ring, he hits hard and it makes it look believable. Obviously his finisher not always, but did you notice as well in the build-up they did a video package and it was supposed to be his finisher that made Dustin when they had the match on Dynamite a few weeks ago. It was the blood was coming from his mouth and it was supposed to be the finisher that triggered that, but because it obviously hit his shoulder, they went back and changed it to a leg sweep and then Dustin hit the exposed turnbuckle and then that's what made his mouth bleed. So AEW do that with their mistakes. They do notice something happen and then they'll just kind of work with it and they'll add it and then they'll be like, that's not what made him bleed, it was that. And it makes sense now. I know what happened, we all know what happened, but it makes sense at least when you watch it on TV. So, you know, I appreciate that kind of attention to detail from AEW there. But yeah, no, so Black makes his way to the ring. Cody obviously does his gimmick and his entrance was your typical Cody entrance. Brandy's back with Cody after having a kid, which is good to see because I think that well, firstly, when he came out, he probably got, apart from MJF and the super click in the first segment, he probably got the biggest boos. He was booed out of the building tonight. Literally, he was absolutely treated like a heel, and he kind of has his little story going with the fans, and the fans could actually end up building a story where Cody turns heel because he turns on the fans because they've treated him. Because I don't understand why he's booed. I guess it's because I really don't know. I guess it's because they think he's burying people, but tell me who he's buried. Tell me who Cody is buried. Tell me who Cody is buried, because he hasn't buried anyone that's relevant. He hasn't buried anyone, actually. He beat QT Marshall, he beat that British Ogogo guy, and they're not gonna be. I don't want them to beat Cody. The people he's lost to, MJF, Darby Allin. Yeah, he beat Darby Allin, and they drew, but he also lost to Darby Allin. He beat and lost to Brody. He didn't do anything to Brody as far as burials go. Brody, before he passed, of course, was at the top of his career, you know. So yeah, I don't get all that, but they boo him. I can see it. It's because he does carry that arrogance. He does. I don't know. He just definitely doesn't bury people, but he does carry that arrogance with him. I think he's better heel than a babyface anyway. He is a very good babyface, but I think it run its course. And when he now hopefully turns into a heel, it will be the best work he's done in AEW so far. Apart from, obviously, I don't think he's going to do anything much better than Dustin match, because that was absolutely ridiculous. But I think he needs to turn heel. I think he knows he needs to turn heel. He did little teasers where he was listening to the crowd and acknowledging the fact that they were booing him. I think they're going to use this as a storyline, and I think they're going to have Cody turn heel, and we're going to get Cody with heel Brandy Rhodes. I don't know what they'll do with the rest of the Nightmare family or whatever. They could all turn heel. It would probably it'd suit them because, you know, Lee Johnson's boring ass babyface. He's great in the ring, but he's a boring ass babyface. Maybe he has more of a oomph to him as a heel, you know. So I think the whole group should turn with Cody. I don't think it should be Cody turning on his own. I think he should turn everyone heel. And Anderson would be a fine heel. Dustin could be a heel. So, you know, that's where I would go with it. But anyway, they have this match. There's a big leaping knee from the outside by Black, which was great. Again, Cody acknowledges the boos. The Black Mass was hit. I'm going to call it the Black Mass until I research the actual name for the move. If it is still called Black Mass, then apologies. But he hits Black Mass. Cody rolls out the ring, which the fans booed again because obviously they wanted Malakai Black to get the pinfall. So there was a point in the match where I think it wasn't, I don't know if it was captured on camera fully, but Arn Anderson fell over and the crowd were like laughing at him. And then, because I didn't know what was going on, I was like, did he just fall over? And then it led into the spot where he climbs up onto the apron and then he climbs up onto the apron and then Cody ends up running into him anyway. So he falls twice in about 30 seconds to 20 seconds. And it kind of did look sloppy. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know what was going on. I think he fell and then he fell. I don't know. But it looked a bit sloppy. But anyway, the match was fine, even with that. So actually, towards the end of this match, not only did Cody acknowledge the boos, but he the finish of the match. It was a nice match, but the finish of the match was he pushed the referee, shoved the referee to the side, and then basically Cody kind of created his own loss because he pushed the referee away, and at that point Malakai Black all of a sudden just uses this black mist, and then he just uses this black mist, it covers all his face, and then Cody gets rolled up 1, 2, 3, but he shoved the ref away. He was the one that shoved the ref away and created that situation. So I think definitely after that we're going to get a heel Cody, but Malakai Black wins. I think a lot of people were worried about Cody winning, obviously, but I don't think AEW. I think AEW they know what the fans think. They won't give you a. They weren't going to do that to Malakai Black after creating this mystique about him anyway. But I think they do listen to the fans, and they've gone, look, we can't have you win over Malakai Black, especially when the crowd are reacting this way. So I don't know what they're going to do. It leaves doors open because he didn't beat him clean. He beat him clean in the first match, and then in the second match he kind of cheated. But again, Cody's fault. I don't know if they're going to have a third match. I just honestly don't know what they're going to do. If they give Cody a win, it has to be in their heel turn way. But no, it doesn't make sense. That won't even make sense. I don't know what they're going to do. I would have Malakai Black beat him again. If they are going to do a third match, then have him beat him again, clean, or whatever you want to do. And then that's the breaking point where Cody turns on Arn Anderson. He could do something to turn heel, basically. That should be the heel point of Cody Rhodes. Maybe it is turning heel on Arn Anderson. Arn Anderson goes and manages someone else, like a Lee Johnson. And then him and Dustin are the only two that turn heel. And Brandy. And then that's it. That sounds better, actually, than what I said before. So who knows what's going to happen with these two. Either way, great match. The crowd made it a heel versus face match, which I think ideally AEW would have wanted the reverse roles. But unless they are using the crowd, hopefully they are using the crowd to build to a heel turn. That's the big story from this match. Is a Cody Rhodes heel turn, yes or no? I think yes, 100% has to happen. Has to happen. So that led into, this card is ridiculous, that led into Darby Allin and Sting versus FTR. And honestly, this match, I did not expect Sting to go so hard. He went way harder than people 10 years, 20 years, younger than him. So, fair play to you, Sting. I never really, So I didn't watch WCW at all when I was watching wrestling when I was younger, and it wasn't until I got old enough and then I realised it was a thing, and then I was like, WCW, Sting. And I went back and watched a few bits. So I was never really the biggest Sting fan, like, because I just didn't know of him that much. Until I got older, and then I watched him all the way through TNA because I used to love TNA, and I watched him through TNA, and that's when I become a fan of him. So that's the Sting that I know mostly. I don't really know him. I know him. I've watched his matches from WCW, but that's not my. When I think of Sting, I know it sounds bad to everyone that's like a really old school fan, but I know Sting from TNA mostly. That's where I've seen him mostly work. So I really like Sting now. I really like his character. I really like everything about him, and the way he worked this match was really good. It was really clever. The one thing I say about this match is, before I get started on breaking it down a little bit, we know that FTR won. Oh no, sorry. We know that Darby and Sting won this. I know Sting should win because he's kind of got that mystique. He's kind of got that. He doesn't wrestle all the time, so when he wrestles, people want to cheer for Sting, and he should win. I think this was a perfect time to get unbelievable heel heat on FTR and the Pinnacle. I think it should have been them pinning Sting. I would have fully gone for them pinning Sting. Keep Darby away. Keep him safe if they do the MJF match. I think they should have pinned Sting. I think they should have hit him with the double power driver again. They should have teased injury. They should have wrote Sting off of TV. I think this should have been FTR's coming out party, so they can eventually try to go for the tag team titles again, because that's what they deserve. They are one of the best tag teams in the world, and the match was fine. The match was really fun, and I liked everything that happened in it, apart from the finish. I just thought it was a good finish for what it was. Don't get me wrong, like, it was a good finish with the Scorpion Deathlock. I just thought the FTR should have won. FTR not that they deserve to win. I just think it would have been better TV. I just think it would have been better to watch the FTR beat the crap out of Sting. Maybe they're holding back Darby or whatever, watching it happen. Put Sting out, literally double pile driver, maybe another one, literally after the match, after beating him, and then you can lead into a more interesting Darby versus the Pinnacle kind of story. That's where I would have gone with it. But it was fine the way it was. It was perfect. It wasn't perfect, sorry, but it fit into the show well. So they come out. Darby and Sting they're over as shit, man. They're so over. The crowd loved them. So that's maybe they do book for the crowd. They can't do it every time, but the crowd do love Darby and Sting. The Revival just in this match proved how good they are, the way they worked and the way they was with Sting and the way they sold for Sting and the way they made Sting look so much better than what we were actually seeing. So yeah, the FTR again proved why they're one of the best tag teams in the world, no doubt. So Darby starts the match. They're wrestling, blah blah blah. Going through all the match, and then it all leads up to a hot tag for Sting. Sting comes in, and this is when he starts working absolutely ridiculous pace for someone his age, and the crowd love it, every moment of it. The match was great. We got so towards the end of the match, there's a chair set up in the corner, and they're gonna kind of try and put Sting through it. Sting reverses, throws one of the FTR members through the chair head first. So that was a cool spot, making Sting look great again by not doing much, but that was a good spot. And then the finish was really good. So the finish was Sting has one of the FTR in a Scorpion Deathlock. And basically, he's not tapping yet. And the other one's on the outside, and he's trying to help him reach the ropes. He's trying to pull his partner to the ropes. And because he's leaning, like half of him's in the ring, half of him's out the ring. Because he's leaning in, Darby goes to the top rope, hits him with a coffin drop on the apron to prevent him, to stop him tapping, and then he gets the tap, and then Sting wins. And the FTR, that's definitely something that they added in, the fact that, because, you know, Darby has to hit the coffin drop, obviously. They wouldn't finish the match without seeing a coffin drop. And the way they would work that, because usually that's the end of the match if it happened inside the ring, right? The coffin drop, 1, 2, 3. Because Sting was getting the win here, they needed the coffin drop in the match, but not for it to be for the victory. So, and they didn't, obviously, this was more creative than just a breaking up the pin. So they did it like that, and he used the coffin drop on the apron to stop him from helping his partner, and then eventually he taps, and then Sting and Darby Allin get the win, which was nice to see. But again, FTR, it would have been a lot better if FTR had just beat the crap out of Sting and made the whole story a bit more fierce and just a bit more thing. But no, the match was fine and it fit in well. And again, the crowd absolutely loved it, which makes you, the viewer at home, just feel so much better. Obviously, when you're watching it and the crowd are into every single match, the crowd make the shows, no doubt. I mean, COVID was terrible for everyone, and watching the shows without fans was absolutely draining. Like, it was difficult. Obviously, the really, really good matches still were good, but yeah, fans make everything. Fans made this show. Fans are making AEW right now. Obviously, AEW are giving the fans so much to appreciate. So, yeah. And then this led into the main event, and it was Ruby versus Baker, and Ruby Soho is over with that song. That song, as soon as it hits, it's like the perfect. So, you know when you have a wrestling theme music and it just pops, and then everyone instantly knows who it is, everyone pops hard for it. That's what that kind of song triggers. It's like a stone cold smash. It's as soon as that song hits, you know, everyone goes crazy. Ruby Soho enters the ring. She's got this kind of denim look. She looks cool. And then I was like, damn, she's over. I thought she was over. And then Britt Baker comes out, and she is so over. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, I really like Britt Baker because I've watched over the 2 years her grow from what she was to what she is now, and she is definitely the most improved wrestler in AEW since the beginning. She is most improved, absolutely. What she's done is ridiculous, and the crowd absolutely love her. DMD, everything about it is just absolutely amazing. And she deserves this main event. Her kind of grind that she's been on this for the last 2 years, and this criticism that she's worked through to get to a point where she's like one of the most over talents on the roster is ridiculous, and she deserved this main event. Obviously, Ruby's just come in, so you know she deserves a main event as well. Don't get me wrong, but this was for Britt. This was Britt's kind of not reward, but she earned this. She earned this spot, and it was a really good match. Probably the best match I've seen either two competing, and that's not, you know, Ruby. I've only seen her WWE stuff, and you know, so there's not a lot there to kind of judge. You know, she's in 6-man tags here and there, but yeah, this was the best match I've seen both women in, and it was a really good match. You know, it was probably one of my obviously Kenny and Bryan differently, but this is like I'd say this was my second favourite match on the show. Apart from the Sting Darby match was really good, but I'd say this was my second favourite match on the show because of how surprised I was by it. So it was a really good match. The crowd were super into it the whole way. There was chance for both women, but I kind of felt like they really wanted Britt to win. Even though Ruby's like the new face and everything like that, I think it was the right decision for Britt to win. She can't lose that belt anytime soon. They need to build someone up to her level to kind of defeat her, and I think that is Thunder Rosa. Even with Ruby Soho coming in and everything like that, I think Thunder Rosa is the woman that will eventually take the belt from Britt, which I'm all for because Thunder Rosa is awesome. I love Thunder Rosa. Big fan of hers. People moan that she wrestles on dark and things like that, but there's nothing wrong with the YouTube shows. You're getting your reps in. Obviously, they've got the record thing going on, so she can still add to her record. And when she's ready for a story on TV, she'll be there. So I wouldn't worry about Thunder Rosa not getting enough TV time, because I think she is the next in line for the women's title. They just need to build her up for the rematch. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. So there was a lot of back and forth moves in this match. Obviously, Britt dominated the match, and that was building towards a Ruby Soho comeback. The match gets deeper, and there was at one point there was an avalanche. Britt hit Soho with an avalanche kind of air raid crash. Oh, and that looked really good. I was surprised with that move, but Britt's gotten so good. It's ridiculous how good she's gotten. It's obviously she's dating Adam Cole, so it's not hard to imagine how she got good, but she is just improving so much. She hits the air raid crash. Her goons from the outside, Reba and Jamie Hayter basically get involved in the match. They're distracting from the outside. Because of that, Ruby walks. She distracts on one side. The referee goes over there, and then when they come back over to this side, one of them hit Ruby Riott with something. I can't quite remember what it was. I think it was like a thumb to the eye or something, a rake to the eye. But anyway, it ends up with Ruby walking straight into the lockjaw, and she taps out pretty quickly, and Britt retains. Ruby looks fine after this. She looked really good. She looks really strong. So does Britt, and whoever does beat Britt, probably Thunder Rosa, is going to look really, really good. So AEW are working with their women's division, and is getting there. A lot of the American wrestlers, the English-speaking wrestlers, they're the ones that are kind of getting over more with the crowd, just because obviously not everyone's used to the Japanese style of wrestling. Obviously Kenny Omega, and if you you've got to be a fan of that specifically to kind of appreciate it. So Rashida's an exception because she can wrestle in any style of match, but the other ones, like the little genie girl, the little genie lady, and things like that, it's going to take a while. If not, it might not happen where she gets over enough to be on TV and in anything legit. Shida's fine, and the women's division is going to be fine, but I think it's the American talent right now and the English-speaking talent that is kind of carrying the division. But like I said, the Joshis are really good workers. They're probably better workers if they were given the time. It's just because it just wasn't getting over. They gave them the time for ages, for a year at least, and it just wasn't getting as over. Riho was over, and Shida's over, but that was it. So, but the women's division is looking better and better. This match was my second favourite match on the show. It was a really good match, really good main event. I just think that once... So there's obviously all this talk about Charlotte and Sasha Banks and where their futures lie, and if they would ever come to AEW. I think Sasha Banks would come to AEW the first. She'd be the first person to come over to AEW from WWE. I think Charlotte would actually do it as well. I really do. I think Charlotte would come over to AEW and be with Andrade. I don't think there's going to be Ric Flair anymore, but I think if those two were together, they could do something over in AEW. Absolutely. Andrade is obviously... I really like his gimmick. I can see why people think it's flat and whatnot, but I quite like it. I like the way he carries himself. With the suits and the great suits and the prestige that he seems to surround himself with. I like that, and I think it's like reminds me of Alberto Del Rio, but it's not as in your face. It's not as cringy, basically, as Alberto Del Rio was, because he is an absolute cringe bag. But yeah, I like Andrade. I think if Charlotte comes over, that'll make Andrade happier, because obviously working with your missus in the same company as Adam Cole and Britt Baker are aware, it just makes you happier. So I think that if any wrestlers were going to come over, it would be Sasha and Charlotte, and then that would take AEW's women division into a completely different level. Basically, that would just make everything perfect in AEW, because Charlotte, as much as people don't like her, she is so good in the ring, and Sasha Banks speaks for herself. She's great at everything. So, and she'd be over as shit in AEW. Over as fuck. But yeah, basically overall AEW was such a great show this week. Grand Slam hit it out of the park. They hit it out of the park. It was so good. I'm so excited for Rampage on Friday as well, because the match is there. I know that Rampage was recorded right after, so I'm super jealous of everyone who got to go to Grand Slam. Obviously, I live in a completely different country, so I'm not going to be able to get there anytime soon. But, it is what it is. But no, watching it on TV is so good, and I can't wait to watch Rampage. Rampage is absolutely going to be one of the best shows. Well, it's going to be the best Rampage show. Or the first one will always be the best one because CM Punk debuted. But this is going to be the best one. Let's face it. This is going to be the best Rampage of all time. It's going to break a million views. Dynamite, I think this is going to be the biggest Dynamite show rating ever. I think it's going to break, what's this record, 1.4 million? I think it will break that. I mean, I'm not an expert on it or anything like that, but I think it will. Obviously, it's going to beat Raw in the 18 to 49 demo, which I think is obviously more important than the overall numbers, because most of the people who watch WWE are like 50 plus. Look it up, 50 plus. But I digress. I just think that AEW is on such a upswing right now. The momentum is flying with AEW, and basically I don't see how WWE is going to combat it at all. They can't. Not with just Roman Reigns. They need to add something. They can't just throw these matches together for no reason, like the New Day versus Bloodline match. They can't just throw those matches together and think that it's going to be okay. You need to restart everything, basically. That's the only way I see WWE doing anything to combat what AEW is doing right now, because it is the best show in the world, bar none. There's nothing that anyone's talking about more. You could have these Madison Square Garden shows, and you can have these big just throw everyone in front of Roman Reigns and watch him win. You could do that all you like, but that's not going to compete with AEW. It's just not what professional wrestling fans want. AEW have got this thing at the moment where they're pushing professional wrestling. You notice that they're saying it a million times a show. That's because it's creating, like what they did with sports entertainment, it's creating something that fans will. So if you're a fan of pro wrestling and you hear AEW, one of the biggest, the second biggest company in the world, saying pro wrestling, and then you go and watch WWE and they're not saying pro wrestling at all. In fact, they're banned from saying pro wrestling. Which one are you going to go to? Which one are you going to like kind of sway towards? Well, if you watch one of each show, that will speak for itself. But I just think that AEW is doing everything they can to get new fans, to keep their current fans, and it's working. It's growing. WWE, not that they should be afraid because they're rich. I just think that at some point, so this is basically WWE, this is AEW, at some point this is going to happen, and I don't know at what point, because this is happening, it's moving towards each other at the moment. At one point are they going to cross? And that's what WWE needs to be worried about. It may not be this year, it may not be next year, but at some point it's going to happen. And I don't think WWE are doing anything to prepare for that. I don't think they're doing anything to prepare for that whatsoever. NXT 2.0? Fuck off. Don't make me laugh. NXT 2.0. I get a bit ranty when I talk about WWE, but it's just because I want it to be good, I want it to compete with AEW. Not even compete as in like they're against each other trying to put each other out of business. I want it to compete on a level where we get a million hours of wrestling a week that we can all enjoy, rather than WWE just abandoning professional wrestling altogether and just doing this sports entertainment crap that might be cool for the casuals, but not for the actual pro wrestling fans that it was when you know, the Ruthless Aggression era. That was way more pro wrestling than this era. I don't know what this era is all about. It's all about money. The money era is what I'm going to call it. WWE just care about money, and it shows publicly. I don't think they have any shame, but you know, me and anyone else, people with way bigger platforms, have been saying it for years and nothing has happened. So maybe AEW after 3 or 4 years will finally make WWE do something, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it ever happening. I think AEW is the biggest blessing that we've all had as far as professional wrestling goes, and I think it's just going to get crazier and crazier. And yeah, WWE, like Mick Foley said, WWE, we have a problem, and it's called AEW. So guys, I will be posting another video on Saturday with my review of Rampage, which is probably going to be another amazing show. Probably won't have a match on the caliber of Daniel Bryan and Kenny Omega, but what will. So yeah, tune in on Saturday afternoon, where I'll be posting this video, and yeah, you can come onto my channel, check it out. A subscribe would be lovely, as I am literally just getting started. Don't really have any prior fan base to this, so a subscription would be great. And you can follow my Twitter, which is down below, and it is WrestleKicks on Twitter. I'm on there pretty much every day. Well, every day. I say pretty much, try and play it down, but I am on there many hours a day. But yeah, that would be great. Cheers guys, and peace.